Hello, Canada. Welcome back to another edition of the Canadian Citizen Journal. I'm your host, Elias Tagay. Well, going to do 2 episodes tonight. This one is going to deal with how the media is lying and gaslighting to you. I'm going to prove it very simply and very easily over, hopefully it shouldn't take me more than 30 minutes because I'm just going to cut through this and expose a whole bunch so that you, especially since it's voter season, sees how you're being gaslit and lied to for your vote. Now, let's just expose the first joke of Canada, the comedic craziness of plain lying. Mr. Mike Myers. Hi, Mike. Don't tell me you're Canadian, because you're not. You're a liberal card-holding runaway who can't live in your own country from liberal policies, who de facto American. You are a shill of a man. Now you may say, oh, easy, it's Mike Myers, he's Canadian, elbows up, remember? No, it's elbows in the groin from Mike Myers. I'm just going to show one of, I could have picked hundreds upon hundreds of clips, but I found this one really summed it up the best. Here is your proud 100% Canadian. I may live in the States, but I'm 100% Canadian man. And you can, I should have a laugh track. I need to get a laugh track to especially to deal with this type of stuff because the hypocrisy coming out of this is absolutely hilarious. Here you go. Here's your Canadian.
I love Washington, D.C.
Whoa, I love Washington, D.C.
Oh my God.
Fascinating.
It's a great
I'm an American citizen now, gratefully so.
Thank you.
Gratefully so.
Welcome.
No,
Welcome.
thank you. No, I
You want to take them to D.C.?
I took Spike to D.C. and I gave him a speech about what a great country this is and what a privilege it is to be in this country.
Oh, what a privilege. What? Privilege.
And he was really blown away. I mean, we were just, it is a very impressive and just, these are some pretty, I'm going to get very serious right now.
He's going to get very serious now. He's going to start talking about how he's proud to be a Canadian, not an American, right? This is Mike Myers. They're using him as a liberal. I mean, hey, elbows up, remember? Get ready to get it right in the nards, people.
Thank you.
Some pretty strong ideals that my British parents, growing up in Canada, and my now American citizenship stand for. I don't take.
You don't stand for Canadian anymore? You mean, Mike? You're breaking my heart here, Mike. You're breaking my heart.
Take it lightly at all. It's a very, very important thing to me. It's true.
One more time, Mike. Let's hear
I
it
love Washington,
one
D.C.
more
I mean,
time.
Oh my God.
Fascinating.
It's a great
I'm an American citizen now, gratefully so.
Thank you. Welcome.
No,
Welcome.
thank you.
Easy, donkey.
No, I
You want
always
to take them to
Easy,
D.C.?
donkey. Don't blow
I
it.
took Spike to D.C. and I gave him a speech about what a great country this is and what a privilege it is to be in this country, and he was really blown away. I mean, we were just, it is a very impressive and just, these are some pretty, I'm going to get very serious right now.
Thank you.
Some
Easy,
pretty strong
donkey.
ideals that
Yes.
my British parents, growing up in Canada, and my now American citizenship stand for. I don't take it lightly at all. It's a very
There you go. There you go. He stands closer to what Americans stand for than what Canada does. Ladies and gentlemen, hey, big applause, standing ovation for your Canadian, the joke of Canada. There's a reason he's a comic, because you can't take anything he says seriously. He's a liberal. All they do is lie. He was a card-holding liberal from a very liberal family, obviously, from the way he sounded, because they fled. They fled because they voted and destroyed the country. And where did they go? They ran to the States, to the land of the free. It's supposed to be better, right, Mike? I mean, that's pretty much what he just kind of said. How his ideals, the American ideals and the fundamentals of America are much more aligned to what my family and my British Canadian parents feel now. Yeah, thank you for letting me come to the United States, ladies and gentlemen. Now, let's just move on. Like I said, I got to get a laugh track for that type of crap. Now, capital gains. Okay, let's just jump right in.
After months of refusing to take a position, Pierre Poilievre came out swinging.
Now his solution is to bring in a giant job-killing tax on healthcare, homes, farms, and small businesses.
Now, did you hear how they introed that? How he kind of wouldn't pick a side. Propaganda 101. If she would have said that in the legislation, the Liberals purposely put other things involved that the Conservatives actually agreed on, but they married the legislation to a capital gains tax, which he fundamentally is opposed to. And anybody who isn't unionized and get a big fat juicy pension, or part of the government who gets a great big juicy pension, which is 95% of Canadians, yes, most of you watching at home, who our pension is our house that we spend 20 or longer years paying off, so that when we do retire, when we sell it, that is the money that we have for the few remaining years left in Canada. And I say few remaining years because here in Canada, you literally almost got to work to the day you die because you can't afford to live. It's heat and eat. This, I am not no millionaire. Trust me, I am not. I choose between heat and eat. I have purposely transitioned over to, my entire life has completely changed because of what this government has done. It has hit me in every which way possible. And every time that I, like all of the people, most 90% of the people I know, when you finally get your head back above water, they kick you in the teeth again and stomp on you. And this capital gains was a finishing blow. A finishing blow. That is what the fascists and the communists use to control its people. They want you married to this system. That's the truth of the matter. They were willing to take away 90-some% of the people's, hey, and all you kids out there that can't afford a house right now, and not just kids, I know 30, 35-year-olds that they missed the curve. They didn't buy when Harper was in. They missed out. And now, forget it. They'll never own a home. And where do they live? In their parents' basement. And between the two of them, they have a hard time keeping their parents' place afloat because the taxes are now so high. So they have also pulled away your inheritance. Yes, this is what fascist governments do. This is what communist governments do. This is just a very democratic way of slowly becoming a fascist nation. Instead of just coming in with guns and beating you up and taking and saying, this is mine now, they actually use the democratic system to do it. And how do they do it? By controlling and buying votes in strategic areas that are a minuscule, actual proportionate area of landmass, but has the highest density population, which 9 times out of 10 are the most brainwashed areas in that country, which we know. We all know that. Like, that whole Toronto area, that whole South Central Ontario and Quebec, they control the entirety of our nation. It's disgusting. It's absolutely embarrassing. Just keep listening, though.
The government plans to tax Canadians and corporations more on the profits of assets like real estate and stocks, known as capital gains. It says this will only affect the richest Canadians and will bring in billions in new revenue.
The Conservatives are coming out against fairness. They think a nurse or a plumber should pay tax at a higher rate than a multimillionaire. Canadians are watching. Canadians now see whose side the Conservatives are on.
Okay, so what if I'm not a millionaire and I'm a plumber? What if? Well, I am. Now what? So because I'm a plumber, I'm a millionaire? Everything she said is a complete lie. The media should have been on that, like white on rice. They should have been like going, what? Yeah, listen to this. Instead, they don't. They will correct the Conservatives and try to twist what they say when these people so obviously can just blatantly lie. I know a lot of plumbers. I know a lot of carpenters. You name it, from roofers, cementers, agriculturalists, farmers, greenhouses, all affected by this. Every single one of us was affected by this. Every single one. They don't want you to own a home, people. You will own nothing and you will be happy. Fascism 101. They're trying to get your vote right now. Did you hear what she said? That is a blatant lie.
But some doctors and farmers say they're being unfairly dinged, and business groups warn it'll hamper growth.
The finance minister is about to impose another job-killing, wage-cutting, price-hiking tax on Canadians, and she wants us to believe the latest fairy tale that somehow we'll all be better off if the Prime Minister just raises taxes again.
This vote was always going to pass. The Liberals' deal with the NDP gives them a majority. The Bloc Québécois voted for it too.
There you go. I'm going to rewind that for you.
Deal with the NDP gives them a majority. The Bloc Québécois voted for it too. The Liberals' deal with the NDP gives them a majority. The Bloc Québécois voted for it too.
So, all of you people out there thinking, oh, no, I'm going to vote their NDP because I don't like the Liberals. I keep telling you, they're a uniparty. This is all they're doing. This whole capital gains, same with the carbon, this is all because of the NDP coalition. They're the same. They're all socialist fascists. They're the ones who are giving us the largest separation gap between the wealthy and the poor. They have decimated the middle class in Canada. We have the lowest GDP in all civilized G7 and top 20 nations. 0.5% growth when you turn around and the States is at 20-something%. They use bad numbers and lie with the help of the media who don't correct them like they should in order to resell this garbage product by wrapping it in a different newspaper or, like I say, kick one pig off and send it to slaughter, put lipstick on another one and bring us carny. It's the same party. And the NDP are the same. So if you've lost faith in the NDP and you think you're going to swing over and vote for Liberals, sorry, educate yourself, please. Like, share, and subscribe. Get the word out. These people need to be educated. There's a very small percentage that are just dum-dums. I know. They blah, blah, blah. That's all they care about. That they don't care. But most of them just don't know. The majority of Canadians, if they really knew the truth, they're smart people. They wouldn't be voting for the NDP or the Liberals. But don't forget there, Francophones, the Bloc voted for it too. Remember that when election season comes up, they're begging in line for your vote right now. That's what it all comes down to. Listen very closely. It's not often I get to see Franco cross, but he's not a happy man. He's kind of celebrating, but he's still PO'd about what happened and how undemocratic the Liberal NDP bloc were in not saying anything, especially the media, about the illegality of what the government did to impose this tax when it wasn't even set into law yet.
Breaking news! Taxpayers forced the government to end its capital gains tax hike. Okay, just now, the government announced that it's ending its proposed capital gains tax hike. Folks, you forced the government to back down. But don't forget what the government was trying to do, okay? This capital gains tax hike would have been a financial sucker punch for so many Canadians who worked hard their entire lives to invest in properties, create a business, and save for their retirements. Don't forget what the government tried to do. The government tried to squeeze as much money from you and Canadians as it could get away with. But Canadians, you never backed down, kept fighting, and just forced the government to end its own capital gains tax hike. And remember all the way back to the last budget, okay? Budget 2024, when the government proposed the capital gains tax hike that would have taken $7 billion from Canadians this year. And remember how the government and those politicians tried to spin you. Oh, this is only going after the rich. It's only going after the monopoly man. Even when that was not true. Okay, the capital gains tax hike would have hit and impacted more than 1 million Canadians, half of whom earn less than $117,000 a year. The capital gains tax hike would have blew a $90 billion hole in Canada's economy and meant 400,000 fewer jobs.
Now, here's one thing I do know. A whole pile of doctors and people who were already kind of on the fence because of the taxes they were paying, the second that the CRA started to try and enforce this without proper legislation, they did it illegally, fled the country. Small communities all over Canada lost a pile of doctors. Gone. Media doesn't talk about that, do they? My community lost 3.
And even with Parliament prorogued and the government failing to introduce the legislation, debate the legislation, pass the legislation, or proclaim the legislation into law, the government still wanted unelected bureaucrats to take billions of dollars from Canadians illegally. But the Canadian Taxpayers Federation, you, didn't let that happen. And the Canadian Taxpayers Federation filed a lawsuit against the government over its attempt to get unelected bureaucrats to take billions from Canadians undemocratically and illegally. Just 1 week after we launched the lawsuit, the government said it would delay the capital gains tax increase until next year. And you kept the fight up, kept pushing back. And today, the government has finally announced that it's dropping the plan entirely to increase the capital gains tax increase.
Now, that's Carney trying to buy your votes. That is the new pig, lipstick and all, trying to say his whole party is different now. Lies. All lies. Are you hearing mainstream talk about this? Nada. Instead, it's, they're dropping the capital gains tax. Like, instead of going, that's funny, the same people who put the capital gains tax in and were trying to do it illegally without it going through the full legislative process are now dropping the tax. Now, that would seem like a bit of a vote buy, wouldn't it? That's the reality. That's the honest to God truth. But are the media saying that? No. Because that affects the people who pay them with your tax dollars. Let's just move on.
The carbon tax cover-up is growing. Today, through access to information, we obtained a government memo which purports to contain the potential economic impacts of carbon policies. All the key data, of course, is blacked out. Earlier this year, the government blacked out data on the financial burden on poor and middle-class families as a result of the federally mandated carbon taxes.
Now, this is 8 years ago. Right there. 8 years. We still don't know. The parliamentary budget officer is making an analysis on 2% of the information because the rest is all redacted. Why would you redact that? Oh, I guess it's national security? Isn't that what the Liberals always pull? This is supposed to be the most transparent government? Do you remember all the lies, all the promises? The stuff that the media isn't bringing up? But I will, because I have to do their job for them. It's still redacted. But now we know, because we have the math, that every time the carbon tax increased, our cost of living went up. The groceries went up. Every single aspect of society increased in perfect uniform with it, while our GDP plummeted, our dollar fell like a stone, and productivity dropped off the map. Math don't lie. Politicians and propaganda media do. And don't forget how they tried to use the tax to buy votes. Atlantic Canada, wake up.
Hey, so it's Saturday, and that means I'm grocery shopping. I'm armed with my list, and I'm getting the big cart full that I usually have to get for my family of 4 on my typical weekend shopping trip. Now, on average, this will cost the typical Canadian family of four around $300 for a big cart of groceries like this. You know what else is going to cost most Canadian families $300? The carbon tax. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's carbon tax is going to cost around $300 extra for your home heating bill this winter. You know what's interesting? Is that the Liberal government has just given a big exemption to one form of home heating, furnace oil. Guess which region mostly relies on furnace oil? Atlantic Canada. Guess what else is in Atlantic Canada? Lots and lots of Liberal seats. Folks, this is not right. The vast majority of us use natural gas to heat our homes in the winter. And as of right now, we're not getting any break on our carbon tax this coming winter.
Now, when the Supreme Court made its decision and backed the federal government, in its statement it said that since the government was going to use this countrywide and set a policy that had to be followed equally and proportionately across the entire nation, then it was right to do so. Now, personally, and if you're a viewer, you already know, the Supreme Court of Canada is a joke. They've done more harm to our country, especially in the last 10 years, but over our eternity, over since when we first, they first became appointed, not voted, appointed into their place. You don't believe me? See how they back the government against Indigenous people, not once, twice, three times, but more than a dozen times. And they still have. And they're still doing it. And what about the Jews that were trying to flee and the Nazis that they ended up protecting? Nothing. How about the right to defend yourself in your home, where innocent people can't use anything larger than what the attacker is using on you, or you get charged with murder? These are liberal shills. They are loonies. They don't deserve a bit of respect from Canada, and this is one of the first things that we need to change. And I've said it on other episodes, it's very easy to use math to straighten out a lot of the problems we have in Canada. If you over-sentence and you get the wrong response, bad judge. If you under-sentence and you get too many deaths and repeat offenders, bad judge. If you are perfectly in the middle and mitigate against laws that are either weak or harsh, you are a good judge, and up the ladder you go. And there should be a pool. And by the way, judges should not be allowed to, at any point in time, voice any political affiliation, sponsor or give money to any political affiliation, or have any political obligations or marriages or contracts to any political parties. And if they do, they get punted off the bench and they can go practice as a lawyer again. Because as a judge, you're supposed to be completely unbiased, nonpartisan, factor of the rule. Not like the system we have today. They are incompetent shills who have just backed the government up and proven that they're not here to protect Canadians, they're here to protect the government. How about them documents for the Indigenous people there, Supreme Court? You gonna get your ass together? You plan on actually doing something? No, of course not. Of course not. To protect the government. Over 100 years of punishing the natives. Why stop now, right? Why stop now? Loser government. Loser Supreme Court of Canada. Ignorance is bliss. Now, about this whole favoring the carbon tax. They broke the rule right there. The whole carbon tax, the whole precedent set, the entire Supreme Court saying you're good to go, just got thrown out. What did the Supreme Court say? Crickets. Nothing. Nada. They used it for political gain. Well, you can't really say that. Really, you don't have any evidence on that. They wouldn't have done that. Of course not. Of course not.
Premier Smith said the federal government has decided that one part of Canada with one type of home heating is worthy of a carbon tax break, while those living elsewhere using another type of home heating do not. Is your government open to, because of the affordability crisis right across this country, looking at other carve-outs for other types of home heating in the future?
That's a discussion that we'll have down the road when we know that this one is working. But I can tell you, Atlantic Caucus was vocal with what they've heard from their constituents, and perhaps they need to elect more Liberals on the prairies so that we can have that conversation as well.
In the future?
That's a discussion that
again?
we'll have down the road when we know that this one is working. But I can tell you, Atlantic Caucus was vocal with what they've heard from their constituents, and perhaps they need to elect more Liberals on the prairies so that we from their constituents, and perhaps they need to elect more Liberals on the prairies so that we can have that conversation. And perhaps they need to elect more Liberals on the prairies so that we can have that conversation as well.
With respect, Minister.
Well, there you go. So not only did she pretty much admit that, yeah, it was done to favor the Atlantic Canada, but you better vote for more Liberals if you want it. Dictator, full-fledged fascist loser. This chick is completely psychotic. Who in their right mind would even say that? In her position. Again, Supreme Court. Crickets. They could have put out a unanimous statement. All they have to do is put a statement. They could have literally put a statement together and said, we are now going to actually have we're going to sit back and we're going to talk about what we decided, and we're going to come to a conclusion. And then they could have come to a conclusion saying that the entire proceedings that had happened before has been breached by the government, and we're throwing it out. And we call the carbon tax unconstitutional. That's in their privy. They're allowed to do that. They're supposed to do that. They're supposed to be here to protect the citizens from government overreach. Who are you voting for? Liberal? Because they're going to steal from one more side of the country and give you a little bit more today? And then tomorrow, what are they going to do? They're going to screw you over and give it to somebody else for votes and power. You got to end this bullcrap, people. We got to expose all this bullcrap for what it is. But we're not done. Let's just keep on rocking and rolling. This is a real Liberal, an ex-Liberal MP, a real Liberal. Back when Liberals were kind of like a not bad party, like how the Conservatives are today. Well, you can't say the NDP, and really, Jack Layton, I think, was the only ever real good NDP, but he was still, I'm sorry, a socialist. Wasn't impressed. Anybody who said that they're going to take Sunday off and the world can wait because of their religion, and I don't care. I know there's a lot of Catholics out there. I come from a Catholic background. I'm sorry, if you're running a country, you don't pick your days. The world doesn't stop. The country doesn't have to stop and suffer for you. You sacrifice those to do your job. That's your job. And the second Jack said that, I knew right there, sorry, wrong guy. But like I said, he was the only one I actually liked because he was actually a nice guy and he did have some great policies. Even though he was a socialist, I would never voted for him. At least he had a little bit of dignity and he stood by what he said, not like Jagmeet Sellout Singh. Now listen to a real Liberal. This is before the takeover and destruction of what they call the Liberals today. The Liberal Party of today is not the Liberal Party. Call them what they are. They are the fascist party. Fascist. Repeat after me. Fascist. Good donkeys. Listen carefully. This guy nails it.
Hello again, everyone. Dan McTagg, President, Canadians for Affordable Energy, coming at you with some fast developing news about the one policy that the Liberals are trying to undertake under the yet to be elected but installed, currently coronated Prime Minister of Canada, Mark Carney. We don't know much about this guy, doesn't disclose who he is, tends to exaggerate the things that he's done. He doesn't like people to know that, of course, he moved Brookfield from Toronto to New York. I'm sure Donald Trump is happy with that. But there's a far more sinister plan that Mr. Carney has in hand. While people are heralding the idea that there's a pause on the carbon tax, they don't realize that what he's actually going to do is transfer it to another form of carbon tax called the industrial carbon tax, where he's going to get businesses to actually absorb the cost And that will be then passed on to consumers ultimately, because business tends to reflect the costs, that burdens that are there if they don't actually go bankrupt, which is an even greater concern. Now, what are we talking about? Well, it's on April Fool's Day. In the midst of an election, you'll get maybe a 30-day reprieve. And in that 30-day reprieve, you'll see gas prices fall about 18.5 cents a liter in Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, about 19.9 cents a liter down in Ontario. And of course, Atlantic Canada, you'll see a drop by about 20.3 cents a liter. Quebec is not part of the carbon tax regime. It has its own cap and trade. And British Columbia has not decided, maybe it has indicated it will, but it has to make that decision on its own. You will still pay the second carbon tax. That's 4 to 6 cents a liter across Canada, except for British Columbia, where it's already about 20 cents a liter. That's already in place. You're not seeing a rebate on that, and you frankly don't even see it. So that's how we're going to continue to see the carbon tax morph into what Stephen Guilbeault, Mark Carney, and other green enthusiasts, the ones who've been leading the climate charge around the world, making prices of everything go through the roof, denying energy from getting to international markets, preventing us from building pipelines while his own company is building them in Brazil and the UAE. At the end of the day, if you think that you're going to get something for a lengthy period of time in terms of savings, you're kidding yourselves. Don't buy this pig in a poke. What he's actually doing is going to come back to you after the election, should he form government, in a way that you could never imagine. By the way, I don't just call them liars on this. The Liberals did the same thing in 2019 when they said we wouldn't get the carbon tax to go above $80 a ton, which is the price we're currently paying, about 20 cents a liter. Instead, they changed it to $170 a ton, a virtual doubling of that price. That's exactly what's going to happen. If you want to vote Liberal and you want to vote NDP and you think there's no consequences for it because this is the guy who can stand up to Trump, he might say a few things about Trump, but not only is he not going to stand up to Trump, he's going to relieve you of much needed dollars in your bottom line. And you cannot afford what this man has proposed, because at the end of the day, it's all about dishonesty. It's all about pushing the global agenda to ensure that Canadians become impoverished so that they have our 15-minute cities. We build no more homes. And at the end of the day, we wind up with less of a future, and a very gloomy one at that, in which the country would then become a subject and surrendered to international interests that have very little interest in ensuring your standard of living in mind. Be very careful. Mark Carney is an individual who has deceived in the past. He's planning to do it again, especially on this number one issue of carbon taxes. I know what I speak. I warned you about this in 2017, 2018. It's now happened. It's destroyed affordability in Canada. Stop it right now and end the idea, any notions or anyone that you know of voting for Mark Carney, because at the end of the day, the Liberals have one thing in common. They want to deceive in order to relieve you of a few bucks in your pocket.
He nailed it. This is how the Liberal Party that I grew up watching as an opposition and leader, bouncing through my decades on this great planet and here in this amazing, once amazing country, Canada, was. Common sense. The debates and arguments were usually the simplest of things. Usually it was certain things on projects or where money should be going to, a little bit of fights about the education system, and not vast differences, not polar opposites, not fascism against democracy. This is the Liberal Party. This is how they should be. Not what we have in government today. This whole last 10 years, it has been taken over. Actually started 13, 14 years ago when all of these people fled. They saw what was happening and they knew they couldn't back it up. And they also knew that because the way they voiced their opinion and were completely against the socialist takeover of their party, that they would probably just get punted anyways, which the Liberal Party does. If you're the wrong color, they punt you. If you say the wrong thing, they punt you. If you're in the way, they punt you. They don't give a shit if you're right or wrong. They don't care. It's agenda, and their pocketbooks first. Canada suffers. Now, just going to show you a quick clip of your dictator. Listen very carefully. Very carefully.
Which industries benefit, which companies benefit, which have, and on the other hand, which companies have stranded assets and lose out as carbon prices go up, as not just actual carbon prices, but shadow carbon prices. In other words, go up as not just actual carbon prices, but shadow carbon prices. And other prices go up as not just actual carbon prices, but shadow carbon prices. In other words, carbon prices that reflect changes in regulation, competitive positions that reflect changes in technology, competitive positions that reflect changes in consumer preferences, as people, I suspect, like many on this webinar,
Right there. Right there. If you don't buy into their credit system that his company, Brookfield, and a lot of the WEF and globalists have been building in the stupidest places, check out my previous episodes. I blew bombshells on Brookfield. Look at how I exposed Brookfield and what they did to just Brazil. I have got thousands of files. I've got way more information that I could ever share in a year on that one specific company, let alone this schmuck, which I did a 2-part episode on, and I ended up finding more corruption in Canada than I wanted to know about. My guts turned. I was sick for 3 days. In fact, talking about it right now, I'm getting nauseous. How corrupt Canada has become. And I will slowly over time build nice, good files, strong backed, real evidence that I show in my description to prove and show the case. I don't lie. Yes, I have a opinion, but my opinions are based on fact, which is how our system of government used to run, on facts. Yes, there was a little bit of deceit here and there, but for the most part, there was fact-based. Now, you're not getting the facts. You're getting propaganda. So, coming right from Carney's lips, he doesn't give a rat's ass about you people. It's all for profit. And even if you are a company in Canada and you oppose this, you will suffer the wrath unless you give him and his company and all of his investors and green zealots their cut. And us citizens are just the peons who are being bought and manipulated to get them and keep them in power. That's the first episode tonight. I'm going to dump another one hopefully before it's too late. I have it all built on file. It's just a matter of going through and actually doing the recording and some editing and all the rest of that blah, 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 jazz. I would hope that you guys tune in. Make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. And if you are, punch the notification bell. It not only helps me grow the channel, you won't miss any future episodes. Until next time, I'm your host, Alias Tagai. You've been watching the Canadian Citizen Journal. Stay informed.